everyone, welcome back to the Cloud Safari series. Today we'll see how to set up Service Connect, a feature of Amazon ECS that helps microservices communicate with each other. So let's get started. Here's a quick overview of what we'll be doing in this video. First, we'll push a sample Nginx image to Amazon ECR. Then we'll create an ECS cluster to run our services. Next, we'll set up the necessary IAM roles so ECS can manage tasks securely. After that, we'll define our tasks with the container details. We'll deploy two ECS services and enable Service Connect for communication. Then we'll enable ECS Exec so we can securely access the containers. Finally, we'll test the communication between our services to make sure everything is working. And let's quickly go over the prerequisites before we dive in. So you'll need an AWS account with IAM permissions to manage services like ECS, ECR and networking. Make sure Docker and the AWS CLI are installed on the local machine. Docker is only needed if you are pushing a container images locally, which I'll be doing in this demo. And finally, you should have a VPC setup with both public and private subnets. Now that we have covered the prerequisites, let's start by pulling the official Nginx image from Docker up onto our local machine. By the way, I'm running Docker commands without using the sudo. That's because I've added my user to the Docker group, which allows Docker to run without elevated permissions. Once we pull the Nginx image, we will authenticate Docker with ECR. We will run this command. Here I will update the AWS account ID. Now we will create one ECR repository named Nginx repository. Here it is. Currently we don't have any image. Now we will tag the image we have. Okay. We'll push it into the ECR. Here we have our image. Now we will create an ECS cluster. Now click on clusters. Now we will create a cluster. I'll name the cluster as Nginx cluster, and we'll set up a new namespace for our Service Connect. I will name it as Nginx NS, and for description I'll write namespace for Service Connect. I'll add a tag here and create a namespace. It will take some time. Okay, our namespace has been created. Now we can go back in the ECS section, click on reload, and here we will have our namespace. Select the namespace. We'll leave the launch type as AWS Fargate. Next, I'll add an owner tag. And finally click create to launch the ECS cluster. It may take a little time for the cluster to finish creating, so just wait a moment. Alright, the cluster has been created successfully. Now that cluster has been created, we are ready to run ECS tasks and services. To do that, we need to create the necessary IAM roles. First, search for IAM in the AWS console. Now click on roles, then click on create role. In the use case search bar, type Elastic Container Service. Select Elastic Container Service tags, then click next. In the search bar, type task execution role policy. This one is AWS managed, and click on next. I'll give the role name as ECS task execution role, and I'll add a tag here and create role. Alright, the task execution role has now been created successfully. Before we create the ECS task role, we need to build a custom policy for ECS Exec. So go to Policies, click on Create Policy, switch to JSON tab, and I'll paste a policy. This policy lets ECS Exec open secure channels for connecting into containers. Click on Next, and I'll name it as ECS task role policy. In description, this ECS Exec on secure channels. Okay, I'll add a tag here. Okay, and click on create policy. Now that the policy is ready, let's create the ECS task role and attach it. Click on roles, create role. Here search for Elastic Container Service and select Container Service tags. Next page, we'll search for the policy we just have created, ECS task role policy. Click on next. I'll name it as ECS task role. Okay, I'll add a tag here. Create role. Great, the ECS task role has now been created. Next, let's move on creating our ECS task definition. Now let's create our ECS task definition, which tells ECS how to run our container. Click on task definitions, then choose create new task definition. Enter a name for the task definition family. I'll call mine Nginx. Leave the launch type as AWS Fargate and keep the other settings as they are. For the task role, select ECS task role, which lets our container use ECS Exec. For the task execution role, choose ECS task execution role so ECS can pull images and write logs. Next, in the container details, enter the container name as Nginx, and for the image URI, go to Amazon ECR. And copy the URI of the image we uploaded earlier. Then paste it here. For now, I'll disable log collection. I'll also add a tag here. Finally, click create to save the task definition. Once the task definition is created, we are ready to create our ECS service. Go to your cluster and select Nginx cluster. Under the Services tab, click on Create. Select the task definition family which is created. For the task definition revision, enter the version number. In my case, it's 3 because I created earlier versions. For you, it might be 1 if this is your first time. For the service name, I'll name it as Nginx A, so we can easily tell it apart from the second service we'll create later. In the compute options, select launch type and leave the launch type as Fargate. Now let's expand the networking section. I'll choose the VPC I created earlier for this demo. For subnets, I'll first clear the current selection, then choose US East 1A. In the security group, make sure it allows outbound traffic for pulling images from ECR. Now comes the Service Connect section. Check the box for Use Service Connect. I'll choose the option for client and server, which lets this service both provide endpoints and connect to other services in the namespace. Next, select the namespace we created earlier, and I'll click on Add Port Mappings and Applications. For port alias, choose the alias we defined when we created the task definition and set the port to 80. This is the port where our Nginx will be running. I'll uncheck the log collection for now. Finally, I'll add a tag. And then click Create. Okay, our service has been registered, and now it's starting the task we have configured. While the task is deploying, we'll go ahead and create another service. Click Create. For the task definition, we'll select Nginx, and I'll change the service name to Nginx B, and click on Launch Type and leave it as Fargate. Then in networking section, I'll choose the VPC I've created, and for subnet I'll choose US East 1A, and then in Service Connect section I'll select client and server. For the namespace, Nginx NS, and click on Add Port Mappings. Okay, in port alias we'll select Nginx 80 TCP. For discovery name, previously we have left it empty, but here we can see in discovery name, if we don't provide them, the port alias name will be used, and which has already been used by our previous service. And here is the another point, and we can't have a duplicate discovery names in the same namespace, so for that reason I'll give another discovery name. Let's say it's Nginx B, and I'll give port 80. I'll disable the log collection, add a tag here, and click on Create. Okay, our another service is created. Let's wait for the task to be deployed. Okay, the tasks are now running in both services. Before proceeding, make sure ECS Exec is enabled for your services so we can securely access the containers. I'll click on the Tasks tab. Select one of the tags. Here we can see ECS Exec is turned off for these tags. Right now there is no option to enable ECS Exec directly from the console, so we'll need to use the CLI command to turn it on. I'll open the terminal and run the command to enable ECS Exec. Let me go ahead and update the placeholders in the command with the actual values. First I'll start with cluster. I'll copy the cluster name, and for service name I'll start with service Nginx A. For task definition I'll copy the ARN and hit enter. Let me go to the console and check whether the service has been updated or not. Okay, a new task is being deployed. Let me check whether, okay, here ECS Exec is turned on. So now we'll run the same command for second service as well. Cluster name is Nginx cluster and service name is Nginx B. For the task definition, click on the service, go to tags, click on task definition and copy the ARN and hit enter. Okay, we have updated both services and ECS Exec is now enabled. First service is ready. Let me check the second service. Okay. Okay, now ECS Exec is turned on for the second service as well. Now that ECS Service Connect is configured, it's time to test communication between our services Nginx A and Nginx B. Let's use ECS Exec to access one of the containers and check the connection between the two services. To start, I'll run the following command. Remember to replace the placeholders with your own values. Cluster name is Nginx cluster. Here I should provide a tax ID. Tax ID. Let's go to the service first. In the tax, copy the tax here. For a container name, we can find the container name here, which is Nginx, and hit enter. I'm getting an error saying the session manager plugin is not found. This plugin is required for ECS Exec to connect into our containers, so I'll install it first. After installing session manager plugin, let's rerun the command. I'll also add a reason here. Okay, now that we are inside the container for the Nginx A service, let's see if it can communicate with Nginx B. For that, we'll need the DNS name of Nginx B, which we can find it in the ECS Service Connect configuration. Let's go to Nginx B service and click on configuration and networking. Below we'll find the URL for Service Connect. This is the service endpoint for Nginx. Now let's run the call command. When I run the call command to Nginx from inside the Nginx A container, I get back the default Nginx welcome page. This means that service-to-service communication is working perfectly through ECS Service Connect. So our Nginx A service can successfully talk to Nginx using its Service Connect endpoint. Since we chose the client and server configuration when setting up Service Connect, we'll get the same result if we run the call command from the Nginx container to Nginx A. That's because Service Connect allows both services to discover and communicate with each other using their DNS names. That's it for this video. I hope it helps you get started connecting microservices in ECS. Thanks for watching. If this was helpful, please like and subscribe for more cloud tutorials. See you in the next one.